let's talk about time. Not in the metaphysical sense, not in the we're all getting older sense. I mean literal, measurable, tick-tock on the clock time. Because if you've been to an AMC theater lately, or Regal, or Cinemark, you've probably noticed that the movie doesn't start when the showtime says it will. Not even close. And now, thanks to a Deadline Hollywood article published on July 4th, 2025, we have confirmation of just how bad it's gotten. AMC is now explicitly warning moviegoers to please allow 25 to 30 extra minutes for trailers and additional content before the movie starts. That's not a bug in the system. That's the system. You buy a ticket for a 7 p.m. showtime, and the movie might not actually begin until 7:30. And it's not just trailers. It's commercials, non-Hollywood ads, local ads, National Cinemedia's Noovie pre-show hosted by Maria Menounos, which clocks in at just under 10 minutes and includes trivia, fluff, and more ads. Then come the trailers, upwards of 20 minutes of them. And then finally, the movie. This isn't new, but it's getting worse. In studios, they've had enough. According to Deadline, studio executives are furious. And honestly, they've been on this warpath since the 1980s. Why? Because showing ads, especially non-movie ads, cheapens the theatrical experience. It's not just about aesthetics, it's about marketing strategy. Studios spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to place trailers in front of specific films. They rely on that exposure to build hype. But now, audiences are timing their arrivals to skip the pre-show entirely. Internal data cited in the article shows that only 20% of viewers were seated at the posted showtime during a recent screening of 28 Years Later in Chicago. The rest trickled in over the next 10 to 15 minutes. By the time the actual movie started, the theater was finally full. So let's ask the obvious question. If no one's watching the trailers, what's the point? Sony Pictures CEO Tom Rothman put it bluntly, quote, "If a trailer plays in a movie theater and no one sees it, what good does it do?" End quote. And here's something that might surprise you. Some studios actually put clauses in their contracts that prohibited theaters from running ads before their movies. That's right, there were legal agreements in place to protect the theatrical experience from being cheapened by commercials for soda, insurance, or local car dealerships. But enforcement of these clauses was practically non-existent in the 2000s. Why? Because the major theater chains were going bankrupt left and right. Between 2000 and 2001, 4 of the 6 largest movie theater chain circuits in the US, including Regal, United Artists, Carmike, and Lowe's, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Overexpansion during the megaplex boom of the 90s had left them drowning in debt. They were desperate for revenue, and pre-show advertising became one of the few lifelines they could grab onto. So even if a studio said, "No ads before our movie," the exhibitors were in no position to comply. They needed the ad money to survive. And the studios, facing a collapsing exhibition infrastructure, weren't exactly eager to push them over the edge. Now, let's be fair. Even back then, ads and pre-show content existed. But here's the difference. Ticket prices were significantly lower. In 2000, the average movie ticket cost just $5.39. So yes, you were still being nickeled and dimed, but at least you weren't paying premium prices for the privilege of being nickeled and dimed. Today, that same ticket costs closer to $11 or more depending on your market. And that's before you factor in the recliner surcharge, the online convenience fee, and the $8 popcorn. So when you're paying double or triple what you paid in the 2000s and still getting bombarded with 30 minutes of ads, it doesn't feel like a minor inconvenience anymore. It feels like a ripoff. Now let's rewind for a second. Remember ArcLight Cinemas? Unfortunately, they went belly up during COVID. Okay, but they had a simple, elegant policy. 3 to 4 trailers, then the movie started. No fluff, no ads for car insurance or fast food, just a clean, focused experience. And people loved them for it. ArcLight treated the theatrical experience with reverence. It was curated. It was respectful of your time. And it's no coincidence that when people talk about their favorite movie-going memories, ArcLight comes up again and again. Compare that to today, where anecdotal reports suggest some theaters are showing up to a dozen trailers before the movie even begins. I haven't been to a theater since December 2019, so I'm relying on message boards, YouTube vlogs, and comment sections for that number. But even if it's exaggerated, The perception is real, and perception is everything. Let's not forget the elephant in the room. AMC is nearly $4.5 billion in debt, and while they've managed to refinance some of that debt to push maturities out to 2029 and beyond, the underlying problem hasn't gone away. They're still bleeding cash, and they're looking for every possible revenue stream to stay afloat. One of those streams? Ads. Lots of them. As Deadline points out, AMC's decision to increase pre-show advertising is a direct response to their financial strain. It's a short-term gain for long-term pain. And it's not just AMC. Regal and Cinemark have already gone down this road, and AMC is now following suit. But here's where it gets even more frustrating. The shift to quote-unquote premium seating. You've probably seen it. A theater that used to hold 200 people now holds maybe 80. Why? Recliners. Plush, oversized motorized recliners that take up twice the space of a traditional seat. Sure, they're comfortable, but they also mean fewer tickets sold per show. So what do theaters do? They raise prices to make up the difference. It's a classic case of robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're paying more for fewer seats, and now you're also paying with your time. 30 minutes of it before the movie even starts. And then there's reserved seating. On the surface, it's a convenience. You pick your seat ahead of time, show up whenever you want, and avoid the hallway chaos. And for certain situations like advanced midnight screenings or opening weekends of major blockbusters, it's a godsend. Think about it. Jurassic World Rebirth, Deadpool and Wolverine, the Minecraft movie, these are the kinds of events where people used to line up for hours just to get a decent seat. I remember when I went to the midnight screening of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I had to get there at least 10 hours early just to secure my place in line. And even then, there were 15 to 20 people ahead of me. Some had been camped out for 14 hours. It was chaos, but it was also part of the experience. Reserved seating eliminates that chaos. It prevents log jams in the hallways, it keeps things orderly, and in those high demand scenarios, it absolutely has its place. But here's the flip side. For regular showings, it's killing the incentive to show up on time. Back in the day, and I know I'm sounding like an old man here, if you wanted the best seat, you had to earn it. You had to be early. That meant you were in your seat for the trailers. You were part of the full experience. Now, you can roll in 20 minutes late and still get your perfect seat. And as Deadline reports, that's exactly what's happening. Theaters have trained audiences to ignore the start time. And that's a problem, not just for the studios who paid for those trailers, but for the entire theatrical experience. Let's break this down economically. You're paying $15 to $20 for a standard ticket. Not IMAX, not Dolby, not 4DX. Just a regular showing. At an $8 for popcorn, $6 for soda, maybe $5 for candy, you're already $35 to $40 deep before the movie even starts. And now you're being asked to sit through 30 minutes of ads? It's no wonder people are staying home. Streaming services offer a clean, ad-free experience. You press play and the movie starts. No waiting, no fluff, no Maria Menounos. And if someone's really impatient, there's always the cam rep. Sure, the picture's garbage and the audio sounds like it was recorded in a tin can, but at least the cam rep respects your time. In the last video, we talked about how international markets handle this differently. In many European and Asian countries, the pre-show is minimal. A few trailers, maybe a short ad or two, then the movie. The theatrical experience is treated like an event, something worth preserving, something worth respecting. In the US, it's increasingly treated like a captive audience for advertisers, and that's a problem. And here's something that often gets lost in the conversation. The movie theater industry's problems didn't start with COVID, or the 2023 strikes, or even the collapse of the mid-budget movie. The truth is, this decline has been happening for over 2 decades. Movie ticket sales in the US peaked in 2002, with 1.58 billion tickets sold across the US and Canada. By 2019, before the pandemic, that number had already dropped to 1.23 billion. That's a 22% decline in admissions, even as box office revenue rose due to high ticket prices. So yes, the pandemic accelerated the crisis, but it didn't cause it. Theaters have been struggling for a long time. The rise of home entertainment, the explosion of streaming, the erosion of theatrical windows, these forces have been chipping away at the foundation for years. And that's a topic for a whole other video. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about ads, it's about erosion. Every time a theater chain adds another layer of friction, Higher prices, longer pre-shows, worse concessions, they chip away at the value proposition of going to the movies. And eventually, that erosion becomes collapse. AMC CEO Adam Aron has defended the practice, saying the extra ad time helps keep the lights on. And sure, I get it, theaters are struggling, but short-term revenue grabs like this are self-defeating. You can't build long-term loyalty by disrespecting your audience's time. And that's the core of it, isn't it? Time. The one thing you can't refund, the one thing you can't stream, the one thing that once wasted doesn't come back. So here's my question to you. When was the last time you went to a movie theater, and how long did you have to wait before the movie actually started? Did it feel worth it, or did it feel like a chore? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your stories, especially if you've noticed differences between theaters, cities, or even countries. Were you one of those people who used to line up for hours early for midnight screenings, or have you completely checked out of the theatrical experience? Because this isn't just about AMC. It's about what kind of movie-going culture we want to preserve, and whether we're willing to fight for it, or just let it fade into a 30-minute ad block.